Over in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific, the U.S. military is making its presence known in a very big way. We're counting 8 warships, including the world's biggest aircraft carrier, on the way. The carrier, along with multiple destroyers, could add up to 5,000 American troops to the region. It's a major show of force in support of the Trump administration's growing effort, on the face of it anyway, to target boats that they say are smuggling drugs into the U.S. But some people close to the president indicate this could lead to an even bigger military operation, perhaps inside Venezuela. Over the weekend, Senator Lindsey Graham told Face the Nation there will be a congressional briefing on, quote, potential future military operations against Venezuela and Colombia. So what's next in all this? How big could it get? Joining us now to talk about it, the risk of the major conflict and more, is Democratic Senator Chris Coons. Senator Coons, thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate it. It's a big day here because there's something big that seems to be gathering in the Caribbean. And I am curious on this question of whether we should, as a country, as a matter of policy, depose Maduro there, the dictator in charge of Venezuela. Do you have a position on that question?
Well, thanks for the chance to be on. President Trump ran on lowering our costs, making America healthy again, and no new foreign wars. Costs are going up. Americans this weekend are going to discover health care is becoming much more expensive when the Affordable Care Act tax credits expire. And now President Trump seems determined to take us to war against Venezuela. Look, I'm no fan of Maduro. He cheated in his last election. He's been a brutal dictator. He's driven Venezuela into hunger and poverty, and he's been a source of chaos in the region. And of course, I support interdicting ships on the high seas, boats that are carrying drugs. But the ways in which President Trump has been using our military to carry out lethal strikes without consultation with Congress in detail and without any authorization, I think should be a clear sign that he's again operating outside our framework, our system, where Congress declares war. I'm the senior Democrat on defense appropriations, and there's been some information shared, but nowhere near enough to justify our going to war. We should have a full-on debate before using any of the massive military forces President Trump has deployed to the Southern Caribbean.
Well, Senator, I think virtually everybody would agree with you, but there are actions short of war when it comes to deposing Maduro. I mean, sanctions haven't worked. Criminal charges haven't worked. A bounty hasn't worked. Diplomacy obviously hasn't worked. The recent Nobel Peace Prize winner Machado has suggested that these leaders are not going to go unless they really feel the heat and the threat of force. So I go back to that key question. As a matter of policy, which seems to be the policy we're tiptoeing up to as a country, do you support deposing Maduro?
No, I don't support an invasion of Venezuela to overthrow the president of Venezuela. And I think the administration owes Congress a discussion, a debate about what our policy is, and once we break it, how we would fix it. President Trump has long been critical of nation-building efforts. If we were to depose Maduro by force, the obvious question is what comes next? And what role would we play in putting Venezuela back together? And how would this impact our relations with the rest of Latin America? The United States has long been a regional leader that has stood up for democracy and for human rights, and we've long had real challenges with guns and money from the United States flowing into Mexico and Central America and Colombia and Venezuela, and drugs coming into our country from there. I support being tough on drugs coming into our country, but overthrowing another government by force using our military is a big step, and one our president should discuss with Congress, should give us policy proposals and the arguments for why it is justified for us to use thousands of American troops to invade Venezuela and overthrow their president. I think this is an urgent matter that deserves the attention of Congress and the American people.
Senator, earlier this month, the Senate voted to reject an effort to block the administration's bombing of these boats. But recently, some Senate Republicans, Susan Collins, Mike Rounds, James Lankford, and others have been voicing concerns about these bombings. What are you hearing from your Republican colleagues behind the scenes, and are they willing to take further action?
Many Republicans have expressed to me concern that Trump is marching us towards war with Venezuela without consulting with Congress and without a clear plan or policy for what comes next. As you mentioned, several of them have said this publicly and have called for briefings, but not enough. When we had a vote on the floor to say that affirmatively Trump does not have our authorization to go ahead, that was defeated. So my hope is it'll come back up for another vote here shortly. We voted yesterday on overturning Trump's tariffs against Brazil as something that goes outside the boundaries of his power. That passed. And there are Republicans here who are willing on issues like this to stand up to President Trump. Just not enough.
Senator Chris Coons, thank you so much. That was today's By the Way.